Thank you very much. It's an honor to have all of you here, especially our colleagues from the media. It's a great honor to have you because you do definitely help us to disseminate messages that we would like to communicate with the nation. So I would like to give you a very special welcome to this particular event. I also want to welcome my colleagues, the National Chairman, the National Secretary. You may wish also to know that we have a number of National Executive Committee members in this place. Most importantly, the Chairman for Elections, because this is an elections-oriented event. So the Chairman of Elections is here. The Vice Chairman of our party is also here. And the light blinds me, but I can see Chairman Mobilization, Chairman Transport, Chairman Education. They are all here and we are glad to have them. The Lusaka Province Executive Committee is here. The Lusaka Province District Committee is here. Basically, we are here for an elections event. Mr. President, we've been looking forward to where we are. It is an exciting time for us. Contrary to what people have projected this party to be in the past, they have projected the idea or the image that we are very scared of holding our elective conventions or conventions for that matter. That is far from the truth. The reality is that even in 2016, we were looking forward to have a convention. We had deferred it so that it can be able to, we can realign the two terms that were running in the same body at the time. But now, because the waters have come down, everything is okay, and we are facing an election 2021 in August. The MMD, like many other political parties, is going to its 7th convention. An extraordinary convention, but indeed a 7th one for this party. Being the 7th convention, Mr. President, speaks for itself. That this is not one of those parties, colleagues, where people can say, no, they are afraid. Show me one political party, including the one that is ruling. Show me one political party that has had 7 conventions in its history. Maybe not even unique. Show me a political party that has changed presidents 4 good times in its short history. It's only the MMD. Today, we are going to have an experience to invite our president to file in for his nomination at the convention. We are unanimously agreed at the National Executive Committee level that this will be our candidate. Obviously, there will be people who are, it's open for people to come and contest, but our candidate is Dr. Nevers Sekwila Mumba, and today the event is to present our chosen candidate for the convention and therefore for the national election. With that said, it is my single and most humble duty to invite the president of the Movement for Multi-Party Democracy, we believe still the incoming president of this party, to address us. Mr. President, sir.
Thank you so much. The Vice President, Honorable Ruben Sambo, the Chairman of the party, Madam Winnie Zalomis, National Secretary, Madam Elizabeth Chitika, the Vice Chairman of our party, who has just come in from the Copper Belt today, Mr. Boa. May I also recognize all the National Executive Committee members that are here with us today. May I also take this opportunity to recognize and give respect to the members of the press that are here with us. Thank you for joining us on this great day in the life of the Movement for Multi-Party Democracy. Today, ladies and gentlemen and members of the press, marks a momentous day in the journey and in the history of our party, the Movement for Multi-Party Democracy. After a 6-year-long battle for democracy, decency, and the rule of law, both in the courts and on the streets, we are now ready to renew our organization and cast a new vision for both our party and the nation. In just an hour from now, I shall be filing in my nomination papers for the presidency of our great party at the forthcoming 7th Extraordinary Convention. The picture that I see today in my mind is that of a battered battalion returning to base in tattered uniforms with bleeding bodies and stretchers of many dead in battle. But they return home with a victory shout because they won the war. Tired and bruised, but they are victors. This is the short story of the Movement for Multi-Party Democracy since it lost office in 2011. Ever since we took over the leadership of a defeated and dispirited party in 2012, those who believed the party belonged only to them fought us from the first day that I was declared president of this party. But they underestimated our resolve and determination to save the party from predators. Our moral fight for democracy and decency in politics was tried and tested in all the courts of the land. The High Court, the Court of Appeals, the Supreme Court, and indeed the Constitutional Court. We won a combined total of 25 judgments out of 27. The 2 that we did not win were procedurally judgments and not on the substantive matter before the courts. The courts have agreed with us that our position was solid and morally right. It is for this reason on the 5th of November 2019, a landmark judgment was made in the favor of democracy and in the favor of our leadership. This fight has, however, left scars on all the soldiers that fought in the trenches of our political party. The intention of our opponents, who are our brothers and our own sisters within the party, was to tarnish the image of the Movement for Multi-Party Democracy and in the process tarnish the image of those individuals that were leading it. My team and I do fully understand the depth of damage our opponents have inflicted on the image of our party. It is for this reason, members of the press, that at the coming convention, we shall make drastic changes to the party, which shall renew and reposition our party for the future. We shall depart from the MMD of yesterday, which faltered at the 2011 polls, and we are going to start afresh on a new path of new hope. This is our season to rewrite history and call this team by the right definition: heroes, courageous and warriors of democracy. Our opponents would want to call us weak and use losses we have incurred in the few by-elections we have participated in as our levels of popularity or a lack of it. To the contrary, we have been paying for the sins which they committed in the name of MMD long before we took over the party. Our fight has been to restore the confidence of Zambians in this mother of democracy, the MMD. The question is, where next and what next after this vicious battle that has left many scarred and some of them scattered? It is to assure all our membership across this country, considering yourself a blue-colored citizen of this country, a member of the Movement for Multi-Party Democracy, that winter is long past. I do not look at those who rose up within ourselves to fight against their own colleagues as our enemies. Those days are over. The winter is now long past. and summer has come. And all those that could have done whatever they did and feel dispositioned as a result of what they did, our arms, as always, are open to have them back within the fold. I call them back so that we can face August 12th this year together as a force that is going to bring the missed values of our party back into government. So we are open, and there is no one who holds any grudge against anyone, because God has brought us this far and has delivered us from those fights. So everyone is welcome back home. Madam Chair, let me talk briefly about the electoral process of our country. We are of the considered view that all this political activity of holding conventions and press briefings are a wasted effort if the electoral process is fraudulent. We call on all stakeholders on both sides of the divide, the ruling party and the opposition, to take a long look at the legitimacy of the electoral process before we rush into elections. The Electoral Commission of Zambia is constitutionally mandated to organize and conduct free and fair elections in the country. However, the road to the 12th August 2021 general elections is becoming more and more impassable due to what we consider to be lack of consultation and consensus on the part of the Electoral Commission of Zambia. Last month, the MMD under my hand wrote a letter to the Commissioner of the ECZ, and in that letter, we outlined the many threats that exist in the manner the electoral process is being managed. The rigging of an election, ladies and gentlemen, does not happen on the election day, but months and even years before the polling day. As of today, the 12th August 2021 election stands highly compromised, and if the process does not get publicly fixed, the accrued lack of confidence in the process may trigger high levels of insecurity beyond August this year. In our letter to the ECZ, we raised basic concerns like the abuse of the Public Order Act by the police, which has limited the opposition's capacity to mobilize voters ahead of the general election. We also raised issues of alleged underage registered voters and the many foreigners who have allegedly registered as voters. The ECZ has not been consultative and therefore has raised great anxiety on the part of the stakeholders. We are aware that not all of our concerns may fall under the jurisdiction of the ECZ, but our expectation would be that any referee would be interested in the concerns raised by the teams before they play and during the game. The voice of the opposition must be heard by the EC Electoral Commission of Zambia. We therefore call on all stakeholders to call out the current fraudulent process by demanding that ECZ begins to listen to the concerns of the stakeholders. My appeal to the opposition leaders is not only to release statements and do the restricted campaigns, but to demand for a clean and fair electoral process. The temptation to think one shall win the election without being interested in cleaning up the electoral process is only but a fallacy. I remember during the time there was Zydeco and UNIP boycotted from the election because of some of the processes in the electoral process, and Zydeco decided to participate and go ahead against the advice that we first need to concentrate on cleaning up the electoral process before we proceed. I remember that they proceeded and the loss was dramatic. And today we do not want to make that mistake. We want to address every problem that is going to be found in the electoral process before we subject ourselves to the election. We all need to stop before we spend the billions or millions of dollars into these campaigns and demand for fair electoral rules first. We cannot be careless. The Zambian people deserve a free and fair election which shall produce leaders as chosen by themselves. Somebody asked me and said, Neves, you are so concerned about the electoral process. Why don't you just prepare your party, work adequately in other provinces to make sure that you emerge as winners? Stop wasting time with the electoral process. That's the biggest mistake anybody can make. Look, some of us with our background of coming from church, there are certain things we can do and certain things we find extremely complicated to do. Some of those is to try to manipulate the electoral process in order to favor us. We are aware that the church is willing to turn the tables coming this election. The church is ready to cast the decisive vote for righteousness. But they always question themselves. If we place this vote on Neves Mumba, our brother, the Christian leader, will we not just waste it because the wind may be blowing in a different direction? The reason they think that is because they say the electoral process is fraudulent and this vote we are giving Neves Mumba will not end up with Neves Mumba. So let's not waste it and just throw it to the wind where the entire wind is blowing. But you remember that anytime we have voted following the wind, Zambia has always regretted. And the Bible tells us that it's not in the wind and the noise where God is present. It's in the silent voice. And it's in the place where God wants the country to go to. And that place is in the hands of the church. And I'll talk about the church in the next few minutes. But I want you to understand that. Those of you that are going to cast the vote on Neves Mumba, it shall not be a wasted vote this time. Because we are going to fight to ensure the electoral process is free and fair. So that, and the reason why I'm pushing for this is because even if someone loses, when they know the election is fair, even they are happy. Even those who have won are happy, those who have lost are happy to the extent that it shows them exactly where the Zambians are and where they stand and in their planning for the next election, because the results are reflective of the will and the aspirations of the Zambian people. That's why I'm fighting for a clean electoral process so that people like us who come from the church can also have an opportunity to win an election. And I'm sure we will put up a spirited fight together. Madam Chair, the distribution of cash, which has become rampant and we're seeing on social media, with the intention of manipulating the outcome of an election, is the clearest definition of the word corruption. The blatant distribution of both cash and gifts in an election year reveals the rot that currently exists within our politics. Anything conceived in corruption can only be sustained by corruption. The ECZ must take special interest in these activities that we are watching online, as they have a direct impact on the efficacy of the electoral process. While it is evident that those involved in these illicit activities are politicians who have no message and come from a depraved background where they had no access to money, and for the first time in their lives, against all they ever thought, they have got money. They never thought in their last dream that they would ever hold 10,000 kwacha in their hands. But as fate has it, they have got hundreds of thousands. And I don't blame them. Their reaction is normal. Coming through dubious means, it makes them lose their minds, get a camera, start to show the money. They are stepping on money, they are sleeping on it. You never thought you could have that money. This is the problem that we have in the country, and we need to deal with it. We expect the ECZ to raise a red flag and call out these corrupt cadres and leaders. To give huge gifts to chiefs and churches in an election year sends a very bad tone of abuse. It's the abuse of the poor. If no punishment is meted to the offenders, then the electoral results shall lose their efficacy. Law enforcement agencies must arrest and investigate all these gifts and cash being distributed wholesale. We further demand that these corrective efforts be done in a public manner to send a strong message that whosoever is caught corrupting voters will suffer serious consequences. Allow me to end by highlighting two national issues of concern taking advantage of this meeting. On COVID-19 and its vaccine. The next president of the Republic of Zambia must have a clear and resolved position on how to tackle the COVID-19 pandemic and its offshoots. I wish to assure the Zambian people that elected president, I shall bring this pandemic to an end with my colleagues through a multilateral approach which includes all recommended health measures being practiced today, but I will add prayer to it. On January the 31st of this year, I called the nation to a day of prayer and fasting to stop the plague. This was at the height of the pandemic when we were recording as high as 1,700 new cases per day. As of 2nd March, which is 30 days later, after prayer, new cases plummeted to just a little slightly over 400 cases, from 1,700 now to 400 cases. We do have a reason to go back to God on a Thanksgiving mission. I'm aware some people say, no, it's science that has solved our problem. But Zambia is a Christian nation and we know who holds all power and who can change circumstances. We give this credit to God, not just to medical staff or the Ministry of Health. So tomorrow at 14 hours, we have called the nation again to a Thanksgiving service, which shall run on all our online platforms, including Radio Christian Voice. I therefore would like to take this opportunity to invite you to join us as I preach a message that I've entitled, The Spirit of the Age. I wish to commend at this point President Lungu and his Minister of Health for being cautious in the ordering of COVID-19 vaccine. We should not be in a hurry and we should not be pushed by any spirit of the age to do that which will work against future generations of our country. A couple of weeks ago, the police in South Africa pounced on a warehouse where fake vaccines were being stored in readiness for rollout on innocent black South Africans. In the same week, a factory in China was exposed for producing fake vaccines for export to Africa. It is for this reason that I raised a red flag in January this year when I recommended that no Zambian must be vaccinated using untested vaccines except the vaccines are proven to be right and proper by our own scientists. I therefore recommend to this government that let us wait and not be in a hurry to bring vaccine that could exterminate future generations of our country because of our recklessness. Finally, I want to appeal to the church. In 1991, ladies and gentlemen, the MMD government declared Zambia a Christian nation. This was in recognition of the role the church has played since independence in shaping the values of the Zambian society. The church was in the forefront of changing the vote from the one-party system of government to a multi-party democracy in 1991. The church was in the forefront of stopping the third-term debate of the late President Chiluba. Today, Zambia stands divided on many fronts. We are divided along tribal lines, and the voting patterns in the past showed tribalism at its best. We are divided on political lines where political parties have become cults that see no wrong in themselves except in the other party. It is this sad position that has generated and controlled political violence and hatred in our country. With this atmosphere of a toxic political environment, it is impossible for Zambia to develop and give hope to the next generation of Zambians. In this state, we need to look beyond the change of political parties as the only panacea to the problems of Zambia. We need to look at individual political leaders seeking for office in August. The Bible says, "You shall know them by their fruit." This is the only qualification that guarantees a better future for any nation. The slogans of political parties mean absolutely nothing in today's politics, and the big money that the political parties have means absolutely nothing in securing a country that is going to develop. The only thing you can depend on is the character of the leader that is leading that country. You can actually trust that righteousness shall exalt that nation. I present the New Hope MMD as the alternative, as its past demonstrates real service to Zambians. Under the MMD, a vibrant economy emerged which raised Zambia to the status of one of the 10 fastest growing economies in the world. Under the MMD, we exercised great fiscal discipline, which resulted in Zambia liquidating a huge $7.2 billion debt in a historic first. The good news for Zambians today is that this August, this August in the election time, the good news is that I had the honor of working hand in hand with the late President Levi Mwanawasa when this economic miracle took place. Elected President, I stand ready to emulate the discipline and patriotism of the late Mwanawasa to take Zambia even further into global success. The game changer in this coming election is the church vote, not a tribal or party vote. Every child of God will be given an opportunity in August to vote on either tribe, political party, or righteousness. I have strong faith to believe that many Christians on that day will cast their vote on righteousness rather than tribe. It is our obligation to do so. It's our biblical mandate to do so. The Bible testifies that when the righteous rule, people rejoice, and when the unrighteous rule, people mourn. May this biblical truth haunt us in our churches and in our hearts until we choose to line up with God's word and put righteousness on the throne. I thank you, and may God bless our great republic.